Hey, this is Neil, the art instructor at masterpaintingnow.com and bestseller of the book How to Draw Awesome Figures, which you can find on Amazon. Now, in my best-selling course on Udemy and on my website, Anatomy for Figure Drawing, I have students that often make this mistake, and I went ahead and left him some notes here. I'm just going to kind of go over these notes, and I'll kind of draw some stuff for you to show you the common mistake that I see a lot of my beginning students make. I have almost 10,000 students now that are taking this course and are very happy, satisfied students. If you want to check out the course, just go to my website and go to courses. Right, so first I'm going to take this off here. Here's the drawing that he did. Now, the first drawings he initially drew were a little bit even, I want to say like worse, but that's the word for it. And so what happened is that he didn't have the proportions right. He didn't use the arms. So the first thing is I see a lot of times is that people, when they take the course, they don't take the proportions super seriously. And so one thing you should know is when you're drawing, make sure that the proportions, when you cut this line in half here, this is the halfway point, and you cut this line in half and cut this line in half, which becomes the size of the head, like so, that once you have this will be the halfway point where the legs will start. In here you have the rib cage. Well, to get the sides of the rib cage, just come down about this far here, and this will be your collarbones. This is where the arm comes down. Draw it all the way down a line like this. This is where some students make a mistake. They don't make this be the wrist. This is where the wrist should be, and this is where the hand should be, like that. The hand is almost as tall as the face, about to the eyebrows and down. That's how long the hand is, just in case you want to know. It's a simple way to figure it out. Now the halfway point between here and here, this is what I was showing. This is where the ribcage is. Now he has this part right here down right. This is where you draw this stick figure of the arm or the mannequin figure. We know now that the halfway point here is the ribcage will come down a little bit below that. We want to make sure the female ribcage that we don't come out too far. It stays pretty narrow, so just kind of an oval shape like so. That's where the ribcage is going to be. It will kind of come up to this part here, another halfway point between here and here, where the sternum kind of is, and it goes a little bit lower than that, somewhere right about there. Now with the female, the hips are a little wider than a male, but that's not the widest part. This is another mistake that people make. When we're drawing the female figure, think of an hourglass figure. That's what I'm showing here. Is he has all this correct. The breasts are drawn a little bit incorrect. I'll show you how, like when I kind of, he has the angle going down, but I'll show you how to correct these lines. Shouldn't come in like that. I'll show you how to make it look correct, a little easier way to do it. The main thing here is that you notice how the widest part of the body here lines right up with the shoulders and breasts. This is incorrect. You want to think of an hourglass. So from here, you want to have an hourglass shape. You want to kind of come in a little bit like this. I should probably use different colors so you can see this. Come in like that, and then come out. Now this right here where the crotch is, the halfway point, that's the widest part of the female body. And you want to imagine the hourglass going like that. This will be the middle part. This is about where the belly button will lie, right about here. This is the crotch area. And then you're going to come in for the knees like so. He has the legs drawn apart. I like to, when I draw a front view, have the legs together or do something different with them. But what's important here is this hourglass figure. Now if you have this hourglass here, already you're going to start to see an improvement on this figure. Now you don't have to go that far out, but you get an idea. Bring the waist in. Now the smallest part of the female body, the thinnest part, is right here, right around her belly button area. The way to imagine that is right where you have, if you imagine this coming down and drawing into the crotch here, just come all the way down like that and have a shape come like this. You can imagine there being a point where this connects into, if you have this kind of at an angle like so. And this will be about the halfway point between here and here, between the wrist and the forearm. Just have a halfway point right about there. And if you have that, this right here is the shortest part, or the narrowest, thinnest part of the female. So this is where we're going to be drawing our hourglasses, right here. Now also, these triangles right here are very important as well. If you draw these on, this will help you have your figure look correct, and then your arm should come off of that like I have right here. So we can already start to see it look more like a female, but remember, this is the widest part of the female body. So what I like to do is imagine that from here to here, there's like a mini skirt. Right? If you imagine that mini skirt shape, now we have this kind of hourglass figure, and we can kind of round that out. Now your figure will start to look more feminine. The next is the legs. Now from the halfway point, you can learn all this in my course. I'm just going to kind of quickly do this. You draw a halfway point line, and that's where the legs are going to meet. The knees will come right above that. I'm just going to draw little marks where the knees will be at, and then you'll have the calves coming down like so, and then the feet, right? So this is just a simple front view, little gap there, bam. Right, so that's the simple way to draw the female figure. And if you have this hourglass shape in mind, you'll notice that his figure will look a lot better if he adds that to it. Now another thing you can do to this formula is raise this halfway line a little bit higher than the halfway point. So if we have your halfway line here, which you're dividing a line in half, just make it a little bit higher, not too much higher. This will make the torso a little bit shorter. Everything else doesn't fall the same though. You're going to divide that in half again. Divide that in half again. That's not quite in half. Let's go ahead and make sure that's in half here. Come on, back button. There we go. Right about here and here. It's best to measure. You always get better results that way. But we can draw the head in here. And another thing, people wonder, well, how wide is the head? This is something that's kind of interesting. I teach in How to Draw Faces book, or I don't have the book out yet, but how to draw manga faces, for example. So you take the head, the length of the head, and however long your head is, say that's how long it is. You divide it in half. This right here is the width of the head. So take that width, and that's going to be the width of the head. So if you imagine the head like a square, it's going to look like so. And then, of course, you just come in and you would shape it to look like a head. Once you have that, you have the proper dimensions for a head. Anyway, so have the neck coming down. A little bit of the trapezius muscles coming off, rounding to our shoulder here. Start adding just a little bit of anatomy to our mannequin figure here. The thumb's going to be, the fingers are maybe the fingers are kind of curling in. Right, so there you go. Again, just remember this hourglass right here, very important. So the thinnest part of the human figure for the female is right about where her belly button is. How I like to look at it is if I take the rib cage, I have this halfway point, and imagine the halfway point between here and here, and cut that halfway point in half. So basically have cut from the elbow to the wrist in half, and then cut from the elbow to that halfway point in half, and that's going to be the thinnest part of the female figure. Now going back to this one here, things change a little bit because now you have to draw the collarbones in here. Still draw the arm coming down like this, the hand. So you still have that same ratio. Here comes the halfway point. But notice now her whole entire torso is smaller. So now her rib cage is going to come like this. Right, her arms will be here, just drawn basic stick figure like. This will come down. Halfway point, that being the thinnest part of the body, coming down to have this curvature. And this is more of like an anime type of figure. Also, you can see it sometimes in comic books. You still take the halfway point and then have that be the widest part here. Now you come down. The knees will always be above this line here. So now you can see she has these really long legs. And how you mess with that proportion will really give you a different stylized figure. As you can see, this is more realistic, which you'll see often in American comics. This is more unrealistic, which you might see in fashion model type designs, or also you'll see it in manga and stuff like that. And sometimes you'll see it in manga fusion, American comics that kind of take something from manga. And you might see it also in a lot of cartoons, popularized, even American cartoons. Another thing you notice here is everything is just kind of a little bit wide in general. And so even if I were to take her legs and I were to move them outwards here, you can see that it still looks different than his figure. I would give her a slightly wider stance. Just saying a little bit of anatomy, not much, just like basic shapes for anatomy, like so. Right, so now we can see that even though I open the legs up, it looks a lot different than his drawing. Even if I were to keep the shapes basic and kind of keep the same basic shapes he has, you can see that my figure still looks different. I opened the legs a little bit wider so it looks a little bit cooler. When you have the legs just coming straight down like this, it's not natural. It's really actually hard to stand like that. By opening the legs a little bit, it adds a more powerful pose. And notice that because how I drew the figure, she looks feminine. You can really exaggerate the hips, and this, again, this is the widest part. So if you ever want to exaggerate the hips, that's the part you make wider. You don't make this part right here wider. This stays the same. It's a bone. The bones don't get bigger. Now, sometimes you can get some love handles on top of here, right? So you can get a little bit of, you can get some fat build up here like that. And that will come off of that, off of the bone, and then that will run right into the fatness of the thigh and leg. And so all this will become one piece here. Usually when there's fat there, it all kind of comes together. You no longer see the separation between the bone. Otherwise, you'll have the hip here like this, that little bone. You'll have that thinnest part of the body come up like this. Just keep all that thin. Come out like this, and you'll have the thickest part of the body. And it kind of comes like that, and it comes around like so to the legs. So you kind of see a little dip right here, and then the bone, and then you see a dip in the leg, and then it comes out wide like that. So you can kind of see a shape like that right there when someone's really skinny. A couple of things I like to show that I find very helpful when drawing the human figure, just like shapes to think about. I'll draw in dark blue over this, and I'm going to turn this layer down. Well, actually, first let's go ahead and go with the breast. I'll go and turn it down a little bit anyway. When drawing the breast, imagine that they come on the body at an angle like this. That's the way that they lay on the body. This triangle shape is really important for understanding the breast, right? That has to be there in order for the arm and everything to fit in. Now, there's a piece of skin right here. The breasts attach right about here on the body. The male and female have the same shape right here for their deltoid, and connects to the arm like this. This is the shape of the deltoid. The breasts lay on top of that, and then this is where the breasts attach, and so they have to fall. This is the rib cage here, and the rib cage is three-dimensional. So the breast is falling on that three-dimensional rib cage and coming up like this. It has to fit within this area right here before that triangle in order to have that line there. So draw this in red real quick. There's a little piece of skin right here, and it comes like that. And then the nipples will be somewhere right about here. This is really important to understand to drawing it better. So let's go ahead and make this, make a layer above here and draw in thick. And I'll go ahead and draw in ink here. So you'll have this little piece of skin right here, and the breast has to come off of that like that. So the breast has to fit in this area. No matter how big the breasts get, they're not going to get so big. Gravity is going to pull breasts down. They're not going to get so big that it covers this triangle right here. So always make sure that triangle is visible. It's a really important key thing to understand about breast. So I can draw this breast as big as I want as long as I keep that in mind. So now I know it has to fit in this area and it has to attach here. Now it falls down, and the shape just gets bigger, and the nipples kind of come down further like that. And as the bigger the breast gets, the more heavy it gets down, and the more it'll come down like that, and eventually down like this here. Now if it's unnaturally big, breast implants, something like that, and they got a breast tuck, you might get something that looks like this here, which is going to be an unnaturally big breast, and the nips are going to be much higher because everything is being pulled up. All the skin is cut here and pulled up and sewed up here somewhere, something like that. Anyway, so they're fake breasts. That's not how natural breasts will look when they're big, but this is common in anime and comic books anyway. But notice the same thing is true. This little piece of skin right here, this like T right here. So if you have that triangle there, you'll always remember not to go above that. You can see that he has a triangle here, so that triangle is there. The breasts though should fit more like this here. Even if they're this size, you should have more of a shape like that right there. Now even if a female has small breasts, right, her breasts aren't very big. This is how big her breasts are, and they just kind of even maybe have a point to it. The rib cage here and this coming out, this is what gives the female her femaleness right there. So it's that shape right there that what makes a female look like a female, this whole hip area. So as long as you get this whole skirt hip area right here, notice that he doesn't have that in his drawing. If you look at his drawing here carefully, it doesn't really have a skirt there. It's more like a man's torso. And that's a common mistake that I see people make when they're drawing females, is they're kind of drawing a man torso in this area here, not a female torso. So something you could remember is the hourglass. So I taught this actually in the recent, or not lecture, I guess it was a recent lesson here on, or free lesson, whatever you want to call it, Right, that's the shoulder area, and the arms come off of that. So if you have this basic shape in mind here, then the neck will be somewhere around here. If you have that basic shape in mind, then you draw down to the halfway point for the knees, and that would be your legs. This will be the crotch area. If you have the hourglass in mind, things work out much better for you. Now, the top part of the hourglass is usually always taller than the bottom part. So, no, not usually, it is. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. So when you're drawing the hourglass, you want to also obviously have the proportions there first. But if you have that shape in mind, and you can even, take it like a kind of an oval shape here. And this is another thing I like to do. When drawing, once you have the proportions and everything, let's just draw here with the proportions since we already have all the proportions there. Go ahead and turn this down some more. Make another layer. So we're going to have all the proportions here for us. Draw the rib cage coming all the way down like this to the thinnest part of the body. Right, this right here being the thinnest part of the body. So now we have this kind of egg kind of shape here, that being the rib cage. And then I like to imagine this other shape, which is, we're imagining again we'll have the legs go closed again here like this. So we have that, to have that shape here. If you just have these two shapes together, you're going to have something that looks female. And we're going to take this and curve it all the way down to the legs here, to where the knees are above the halfway line. If you have these two shapes overlapping going into each other, this right here and then the triangles coming off, really helps, I think for me, draw the female figure. You have the arms come off there like that. If you have that shape there, it's kind of hard not to draw a female that actually looks like a female. And you'll have this triangle part coming down like this, and then you have your feet like that. Notice, even though it's a stick figure, it still looks feminine, looks like a female, even though there's no breast on it yet. So the breasts aren't what make a female look like a female, it's this hip area here that make a female look more like a female than anything else. Right, so I just thought I'd go ahead and make a quick video. Those are some of the notes that I was writing down. Of course, I explained it to you guys in more detail. All I had here for him were just some written notes. And I'll just go through and we'll look at those again real quick here. And so with these notes is that just to make sure you can curve it out. So once you have drawn the idea of the hourglass figure here, you want to kind of curve it out, make it all kind of round. And then here I showed this overlapping of shapes here. If you have those two overlapping of shapes there, you'll see that you're going to have a female looking figure. Kind of hard not to get a female figure out of that. Then I showed like how to properly make sure that triangle's there and then have the breast fit into this area here. And then you want to make sure that it's thin here and then comes out thick here and just kind of round that curve. You round that curve, you have a nice, feminine curve here, and the bottom and belly be right about here. You can kind of shape this part in because it's the under part. You can even add, a little bit of shadows here for like the belly where the abs would be. You can sometimes see the under part of the ribcage there and so forth. That's all part of the anatomy I teach in the anatomy course. I teach this and so much more, but sometimes this part here is, when they're going through the course, the mannequin stage, when they go from the stick figure, that's a basic skeleton, and then go from that to the mannequin stage, sometimes a lot of them end up looking very straight like this, more masculine than feminine. And it's really easy to fix if you just follow these guidelines that I have. And so overlapping ovals is some notes I put in here for him. Other notes are showing him here think hourglass, think this hourglass figure here. Think the breasts come out this way. That's why I drew the angle. That's why I drew the angle there, and that's what that's representing. That breasts have this angle to them. They don't just go straight down. They're not just like coconuts. They're not just round balls on the body. Which he doesn't have round balls on the body, so that's good. And then to always make sure to draw this arm first. So between where the shoulders are and the crotches, the halfway point, that's where the rib cage is going to just go a little bit past that. And that's going to be the shortest part, or the thinnest, narrowest part of the female body. The thickest part will be at the halfway line. That's really important to memorize, and just kind of have this shape right here, this kind of skirt shape attached to it. Keeping these things in mind, this is the halfway point here. I'm just showing, cut this in half, that there's space between here, all this empty space. Notice if you take the outside of his and draw a line straight up, notice there's not much space between the edge of the body and the outside line. That is, if you take the widest part of her legs and hips here, and also the widest part for a man, the legs are here, the widest part. Notice with this body, That's why it looks more masculine. The whitest part he drew here is actually the leg. That's true for a male. For a male, this right here, the thigh part right here, this is the whitest part. Well, outside of the shoulder area, that's the whitest part of the male body, is how far those thighs stick out, and the hips will be actually narrower than that. And that's how he drew it, is to where the thighs, he basically drew from here to here, he drew a male figure, and that's why it doesn't look right. And so just make sure that the whitest part of the female is right here, where her hips, right at the crotch line, that's the whitest part. And in this rise, you have the bone that comes out here, and the bone sticks right here. So this is the hip bone right here. Then you have the humerus bone, which comes out here, and it sticks out right here. Then it comes in and connects to the knee. That's the shape of the humerus bone. The femur, sorry. Humerus bone would be up here. So the femur bone is shaped like that. If you remember that right there, that's going to help you a lot when drawing the figure. And that's why it's important to draw your skeletons this way, or your basic stick figure type skeletons that way. Is that way you know the shape the leg should have. And if you have that underlying here, and then you just add skin on top of it, like right here, that has angles, and you can see you have that hourglass figure in there. Right, so yeah, those are the things to keep in mind, that's the whitest part. And if you draw a line straight up from this whitest part, besides the shoulders of the female body, and come up like this, and then draw a line where the skinniest part is, you should have a good amount of space between those two lines. He has very little space between those two lines. With the male figure, it's kind of the other way around. There's not going to be much space there at all. But male figure is for another lesson. And again, I go through all of this in my anatomy course. Again, I have like 9,700 something students on there. So that, there's a reason why I have that many students, and they all paid. I never gave the course out for free. There's never a time where I had a free trial on it. So those are over 9,700 paid students. They're all very happy with the course. So yeah, check it out. It's at masterpaintingnow.com. And you'll see it right there. It's the anatomy course. And I also have other courses as well. So if you want to learn other things like gesture drawing and that sort of thing, feel free to check it out. I really am sorry, guys, that I haven't had the time to bring you guys more free tutorials. I'm going to try harder to bring you guys free tutorials. I have been so busy, I haven't got a chance to work on my next course, which is going to be how to ink comics. And you think it'd be an easy thing to know once you know how to like pencil comics and draw and stuff like that. But there's a whole really unique skill to inking, whether it's physically inking with markers or ink pens, or inking on the computer, and what program to use. And even if you're just using the same exact program, there's still skill in inking. How to set your brushes, and different thicknesses of your line, and you can also develop your own style in inking. That's what the course is going to be all about, how to ink. And by the way, there's a lot of jobs out there for just inkers. So you don't have to be the best drawing in the world, but you can be a really good tracer, have a really good inking style, know how to ink right, and get a job working for a comic book company just doing inking. In fact, a lot of pencilers start off that way. And also coloring. There's usually a penciler. That's the one that like designs a story idea. Sometimes there's even a different person that does like the storyboarding, kind of like the basic sketch, kind of comes up with the storyboard. Usually the penciler does that. He's the imagination behind it all, comes up with the actual how everything should look, and does all the panning. He does all the hard work. He's like the director, right? He's like coming up with how everything should look and designing everything. So after the pencil's done with his work, it's rare the penciler will also do his own inking. I shouldn't say it's so rare, but oftentimes they want to split this up so that work gets done faster. So, because if the inker or if the penciler has to also ink everything, that's more time out of his schedule that he's not doing penciling. So they usually break it up in at least 3 separate jobs. You have four main jobs. You have the penciler, you have the inker, you have the colorer and or toner if it's done in black and white, and then you have the person puts all the words and all the lettering, and the letterist, whatever they're called. So the reason why that is it makes you can make comics faster, right? When you break the jobs up. So now that once the penciler is finished with page 1, instead of having to spend another hour to 3 hours whatever inking that same page, now you can take that hour to 3 hours and spend it on working on the next page for penciling. And then instead of having to color it as well, a colorist will take over. So instead of the inker having to also color, then another person would take over the job, and they would do all the coloring. and then that way the inker can spend his time doing the next page. But if the inker is very good at inking and good at coloring, then sometimes they can have that, do both at the same time, because it takes about the same amount of time to ink and color as it does to pencil and come up with the entire penciling of the page. So if they're good, then it could all be one person. But yeah, anyway, just want to let you guys know that there is definitely a job in inking. Right, but if you want to do anything with drawing, you really have to know how to draw the female figures, make them look cool and sexy, and this is a really easy way to get that job done. So I just wanted to kind of share what I share with my students here in the notes, and I wanted to kind of go in more details in a little free video here for you guys. Thanks for watching. Hey, if you guys enjoyed this, you guys learned something from this, please go ahead and subscribe and hit the share button. I'd really appreciate it. And leave a comment on what you'd like to see, or just leave a comment of anything, just saying, hey, cool, thanks, or whatever. Every comment I get helps the channel grow, and every subscriber I hit helps the channel grow, and every thumbs up button I get helps the channel grow, believe it or not. Those three things, if you can do all three of them, that's awesome. But even if you just do 2 out of 3, that's great. But yeah, everything that you do with those 3 things helps a YouTube channel grow. And I know a lot of people are like, hey, this guy deserves more views. The only way that's going to happen is if you guys help out by leaving comments and thumbs upping, and then also, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. All right, guys, and females, thank you for watching. That's that's the end of the lesson. Until next time. I was about to say same bat time, same bat channel, but that's nerdy.